Hello, everybody, to all my muses out there. Welcome to the Forhermusings podcast. This is the very first episode, and so I thought I would do sort of like an introduction because this episode is the solo episode where I just take the reins and talk for a little bit, have a little chat and just have like a little moment just to talk about why I started this podcast, what I'd like to do like going forward, what to expect from this podcast, and so on and so forth. So the first thing I want to say is I'm just so glad to be here and to be taking on this new project because, Forhermusings has been on hiatus for a little bit. I would say over a year or even more than a year, maybe 2 years, because, a lot of things have happened and, change is one thing that I'm still getting used to. But of course, for her musings to me is all about change. It is a platform. Yes, we're calling it a platform. It's a platform. It started off, I mean, it's still very much a blog. I still, would try to, write stuff, which is obviously the background and the inspiration for everything is me being a writer. But we're trying to do more. We're trying to make it a platform. We're trying to do media. We're trying to do film. We're trying to do music. We're trying to do a couple of different things. But at the core of it, film has always been so special to me. And so for this season of the For Her Musings podcast, which is going to be a biannual podcast and maybe some special episodes in between, if we have time. Biannual podcast, which basically means as it sounds, it's biannual. It's twice a year, because we believe in quality over quantity over here at For Her Musings. I know a lot of people like would post, the general like system of hosting a podcast is to post regularly every week, but also just because of time. There's a lot of things going on and life is going to happen. And so, I basically will have to take a lot of time out um to have a regular podcast. And that's just not sustainable for me right now. So yes, it's going to be a biannual podcast, and we will try our best to sprinkle in a few episodes, special episodes here and there. But what you can expect on this season is going to be 6 or 7 episodes, very special episodes, including this one. The theme for this season is new beginnings, and so I'm very excited to have special guests who you probably may have heard of. And even if you haven't, you're bound to be excited by them and their work and what they do. I would say most of these people are people that are friends, people I've collaborated with, people who just inspire me, people who I would call my muses. And so each episode expects to have a muse of mine who will introduce themselves, what they do. And so what we're also trying is halfway through the episode, my guest will bring on a film of choice to the For Her Musings table, a film that has to do with new beginnings. So expect some laughter, expect some surprises along the way, as we discuss their choice of film and what it has to do with new beginnings. And of course, the reason why I'm using film and pushing for film for this podcast and just in general for her musings, because when I think about my story and my life, I feel like I've never taken the time to kind of reflect on what I've been through. I feel like I've always just let things have happened and I've been like, okay, well, this happened, this means this, and I'm gonna move on. But I never really took the time to let everything sink in and soak in, like what just happened? What just happened to me? Where is my life going? Do I need to sit back and relax, or do I need to keep trudging, pushing forward? So this podcast is almost like a healing for me, and I hope it will be for you too, and also for the guests who come on as well, because they're just wonderful individuals, so creative, and I'm sure they have a lot to share. So I guess the most important thing right now would be to discuss my film of choice for the podcast. Because obviously I'm bringing on guests to talk about their film choice. But since this is a solo episode and I'm just taking the reins, okay? God is taking the wheel. Um, I'm in the car, God's taking the wheel. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's even possible because the car would crash, right? You gotta hold on to the wheel as well. Excuse me. You have to hold on to the wheel as well. We can't just expect the universe to do everything for us. So please don't let go. Please, when you're driving your vehicles, hold on to the steering wheel. Okay. So my choice of film is called Daughters of the Dust, 1991. That is when it was released. If you actually go on the Forhermusings Instagram and you look at my little mini stories on my profile, you will see a picture of Daughters of the Dust under, I think it's Film Inspo or something like that. And I feel like it's a full circle because now I can finally talk about it and explain why that is on my Instagram because um some of you may know, some of you may not know, but I am Nigerian. I was born in Nigeria and I moved here when I was 7, exactly on my 7th birthday. Okay, I'm not going to tell you how old I am because a lady never really reveals her age. You can have a guess. I mean, you can try. It's up to you. But I can let you. I can assure you, I am an adult. Um, so that transition from uh 7 to where I am now, it's such a big it's such a big deal because I think again I never took the time to really let it sink in because when you're young and you're moving through life and you're going to a different school, a different country, settling in a new environment, new communities, new culture, the last thing you want to think about is, okay, what does this mean? All you're thinking about is like, okay, I need to survive. I need to like get used to the new school, make new friends. There's no time to process the transition, right? So this film, Daughters of the Dust, although it's loosely related to like um Nigerian culture, I suppose. Um, I still feel like it's related to my experience because this film is about people and the human experience. And the human experience is universal, regardless of time, age, race, whatever. We all experience this, transition sometimes, moving from one, geography. Geography's coming in here, moving in from one place to another. Um, and of course, this film is special to me because I only discovered it maybe 3 years ago. And what's so special to me is there are certain elements of this film that scarily relate to the transition, you know, I made from Nigeria to the UK when I was 7 years old, because the plot centers around this family, the Pesant family, who maintain this kind of gula culture of the islands of the Sea Islands of South Carolina. And so, when you think of African American history, you obviously think about like slavery and the antebellum South and things like that. But we also, think of acts of special moments, or I guess acts of resistance against the times, like the Igbo landing. We think of just the fact that some cultures, some people, some African American people, um, cultures, communities were able to actually maintain their African heritage. And the language, the Gula language is like almost predominantly English, but the intonation and pronunciation is very much African. So you kind of have this Creole kind of situation going on, right? So, the Peasant family are planning to move from the Sea Islands of South Carolina to the mainland up north. And it's not really explained where exactly up north they're going, but we just assume they're going up north where it's more pleasant. The African American experience is more pleasant. But we don't know that. We don't know that. So they have this family picnic on the beach, and there's food and everyone's enjoying, and there's, everyone's talking and sharing memories. And the mood is very like very kind of like very pure, very still, like, there's a moment of reflection, right? And I feel like that's the same thing that happened to me when I was 7 years old, or I guess six going on seven. And I was moving to the UK because I had my birthday party the day before I left, the day before I got on the flight to the UK. I had a party and all my friends were there in Nigeria, specifically Lagos, if you're interested. All my friends were there, my family were there, and we were all just celebrating and eating cake and rice and chicken and all that good stuff, all that good stuff. And so it's like a similar situation with the Peasant family who are also moving and having this kind of big feast celebration to kind of feed themselves and nourish themselves, but also nourish their spirits, because this could be the last meal they have for a while, or the last time they see each other as a whole family unit for a while. Um, and even talking of food as well, like this could be the last time they get to eat the foods that they remember. I mean, I saw like seafood, I saw okra, I saw all these things that, you know, relate to African culture, right? And of course, for the time in America, that the film was set for this Gula culture, who again maintain that culture, um, and African kind of practices. So that's one side of this film, and also how it relates to me and why I chose it, because it's just so special. And we think of the transition, right, you know from one place to another in life. We're always going through changes. We're always going through um we're always in motion, and then that's why I wanted to bring this film onto the podcast, because you know, again, if we took the time to actually look at the things, we've gone through in life and let it soak in, we'd realize like we've actually been through a lot, and it would make a great film. A great sort of like autobiographical, I guess, in my case. And then in the case of the film, it's more of like an anthropology kind of historical impressionist documentation of, this culture at the time. So that's why I wanted to bring this film, and that's why I wanted to discuss uh films with my guests on the podcast. Because I think film, again, it's just so special. It's our safe space. It's a place we go to. It's a reference point. When we're feeling sad, we remember that film that makes us happy and makes us feel good, or that romantic comedy, or just that action film that makes us feel strong. Like I think of films like Charlie's Angels, just at the top of my head, films that just make me feel like, yeah, I could do this. you know, um, there's so much to talk about. There's so much to talk about. But yeah, that's why I briefly wanted to bring on this film. It was directed by Julie Dash, okay? Critically acclaimed Julie Dash, an African American female director who was the first to get a kind of a wide theatrical distribution of her film. Obviously, as a Black female, creative, it wasn't easy, but life isn't easy. And when I think about my experiences in the creative industry as well, and trying to fund things, projects, being a part of things, trying to find representation, agencies, that kind of thing, it's hard. It's not easy, and it's not for the faint-hearted. But yeah, that's the film that I wanted to talk about. There's so much to talk about, and I feel like somewhere down the line, I'm manifesting it that I'm going to interview Julie Dash one day and tell her that your film speaks to me, even though I'm not African American. I will never be African American. I will never understand the African American struggle. I will also still I can still relate to the fact that this film in a way is a celebration of Black joy. These women, these people are all dressed in white, um, or off-white, I suppose. Reference to Virgil Abloh. Okay, may he rest in peace. They were wearing these like off-white clothes, denoting kind of the time in the 1900s, how women would dress. When I say women, I mean women who predominantly white women, I suppose, who you would see in the magazines, right? And so these Black women wearing these white dresses is symbolic of this kind of like aspiration to who they want to be, what they're letting go of, and just expressing themselves and their personal style. Like they're all wearing white. Like when I watched the film, it was almost jarring because I was like, man, they're all wearing white. It's like it looks like a religious cult. It looks like, but it's like, no, it's a family. And family, when they get together, it's a unit. We're all in sync. We're all on the same page most of the time. And the same thing for me as well. Like on my birthday, the day before I left to go to Nigeria, sorry, to not go to Nigeria, the day before I left Nigeria to move to the UK, I also I wore my Sunday best. I wore my Sunday best. I wore my lovely dress. And so, and that's kind of what was expected when you're having a birthday or a party or a celebration. And to me, like just like Daughters of the Dust is kind of like anthropology. It's like a historical documentation. I feel like that was also the same for me in a way because me putting on my finest, my Sunday best, it just made my that particular birthday so much more pivotal in my life because I wasn't just having my normal birthday routine, right? Of like dressing up, maybe going out to eat or whatever. It was so symbolic and significant of the fact that my life is going to change. And in some way, the way I dressed that day was perhaps an aspiration to where I was going. But maybe it was also honoring who I am and who the person I'm leaving behind or the person I'm taking with me. Anyway, I've said enough. I'm so excited for this podcast. Because For Her Musings is all about making unique stories exist. I don't know if I said that early on, but that was like that's the the song. That's the theme aside from this current podcast. That's the overall belief of For Her Musings. It's like we have to make unique stories exist. Because also make unique stories exist is, I guess, an acronym for Muse, MUSE, For Her Musings. Get it? So I'm so excited for this podcast and I can't wait for you guys to meet my guests in the following episodes. I hope you enjoyed this solo episode. I hope I wasn't talking for too long. I almost feel like I'm doing therapy or something. Like I'm just talking and talking and talking and talking and thinking, is anybody listening? But of course, you guys aren't my therapist. Um, Maybe I am my own therapist. I don't know. But yeah, I'm so excited for this podcast. I can't wait to get into it. And yeah, make sure you listen to the podcast where you listen to podcasts. The details will be dropped very soon. And yeah, can't wait for you guys to go on this journey with me. So thank you so much for listening to this solo episode. I'm your host, Funmi Olagunju, aka For Her Musings. Thank you so much for supporting. And yeah, can't wait to get this show on the road. Thank you. Bye.